Thank you for tuning into our podcast. We are coming to you from Chicopee, Massachusetts. I am your host, Carrie, and joining me is Holyoke's very own local historian and creator of the historical tours of Greater Holyoke, Robert Camus. He offers both public and private tours, as well as presentations of the local canal systems, reservoirs, cemeteries, and churches, as well as various parks and streets in Holyoke, South Hadley, and Chicopee, Mass. Now you actually lead these tours and give these presentations yourself, is that correct?
Yes, and this is right at the start of my tours.
And today we'll be talking about the Keating Wheel Company. So tell us of the history of Keating Wheel.
Alright, the Keating Wheel Company started its first business ever in Holyoke, Massachusetts. Now, it didn't stay there very long. It stayed there from 1893 to 1897. That's only 4 years. And they were a mill that made bicycle wheels. So the Keating Wheel Company. And the Keating comes from Robert Keating, who started up the company. And he probably wanted to start up in a place that had a lot of energy use, but he was above the first level canal, so he wasn't using that. They must have just depended upon sunlight for electricity, for basic lights in the mill. Now, it was a big mill, about 3 or 4 floors high, actually, and so they did a lot of work. Now, they only stayed 4 years there, and then he moved off to Middletown, Connecticut. And there they stayed a couple decades. Of course, what put them out of business is there's so many bicycle makers around, and then cars started coming around that both the lack of profitability after a while and the cars put them out for good. All right, so we're going to talk about production at this Holyoke mill, and we're also going to talk about Robert Keating, what else happened in his life that's important. And then we'll talk about this mill's location.
So what was production like at Holyoke Mill?
Okay, now they were located in a position that they couldn't use the power of the Holyoke Canal system, but they had a beautiful 4-story building going for them. It was such that it was divided up by labor. So this production method was done here, this was added there, so forth. And the reason why they did it is because it's easy to assemble a bicycle at different units. And then they just wheel a bicycle over or bring it over to the next line and start doing the next production. Right? So it's fairly simple. So I'm going to give you a breakdown of what they did. Half of their mill was 2 floors high, or actually 2/3 of that mill was 2 stories high, and 1/3 was 4 stories high. All right, so I'll tell you about the smaller section. On the second floor, the small section was the machine shop, where they got everything metal worked out to what they need. He was one of the first producers of a triangular-shaped bicycle. On the first floor of that smaller mill was a blacksmith, and also within there they did the enameling of the bicycle's surface. They did the polishing of all the parts, and they did the brazing, which is equivalent to some of the parts of blacksmith. Now, in the larger 4-story building, they did it by divisional labor. Also, on the 4th floor, they did assembling, and they did boxing of the bicycles. On the third floor, the next floor down, they tooled or get hold of the small apparatus right down to the level they needed, like the derailleur, the gear shifter, the brakes. And then the second floor was both administration and the shipments, and the first floor was the storage. Now, they only stayed 4 years in Holyoke, and so this mill would go on to do different things after that. And that's unfortunate, too, because it would have been great to see how they developed in this power city.
So quickly before we continue with the rest of our interview, just to fill our listeners in, if you want to find out more information or sign up for any of his various tours, you can check out his website at holyokecanaltour.org. And there he has both videos of the various stops along each tour, and also past and present photos of the historical sites throughout as well. And for fun, educational outdoor activities for the whole family, or for your group parties, especially those special occasions and get-togethers. They are also good just for getting outdoors for the day. So getting back to our interview, where did they move after, and what else did Robert Keating do?
All right, they moved off to Connecticut, to Middleton, Connecticut, and there, that town is very proud of the presence of the Keating Bicycle Company. They have a small museum there for that. And it's hard to figure out why he moved down there. He was from Springfield, and so why would he ever move down to that location? But more importantly is this. Robert Keating was a tinkerer, and he loved to figure out what to do with this new bicycle. And there is some evidence that he was the first person to invent a motorcycle. This is very early 1900s. Most people say the Indian motorcycle company out of Springfield, Massachusetts, was the first to invent a motorcycle of any kind. But there's evidence that he was trying them out. Now, sadly, the company went bankrupt right as he was doing that. So no one can prove absolutely that yes, he did it. But Indian Motorcycle gets the nod on this. Strangely, they're both he and the Indian Motorcycle were from Springfield, Massachusetts. Now, why would that be? We got to remember that the Industrial Revolution happened in southern New England. There was a lot of tinkering with this and that, and also that Springfield was a very powerful city, and it had a lot of people doing very innovative things. And so you might expect, okay, that's why they started making a motorcycle there. That's why a lot of bicycle makers were in the northeastern United States, so forth. So it's good to read up on his life, and maybe someday they'll find more evidence.
So where was the mill located in Holyoke?
Okay, the mill is located where the present-day Volleyball Hall of Fame and Children's Museum at Holyoke is located. Now, it's not the building, so it's not the same building, it's the same location. When the Skinners took over in 1902 at that area, they made their mill from Appleton Street almost to about 100 yards short of Dwight Street. And they left a little place, and then it was filled in with additions. And those additions are what now make up the Volleyball Hall of Fame and the Children's Museum. But the Keating Wheel Company from 1893 to 1897 was located in its own factory at that position. And they built their own factory. And so there used to be another mill right there at that point. And sadly, it was taken down. Or else, Holyoke would have this great Keating Wheel Company start up business. Now, other bicycle companies as dealers were located in Holyoke, but never again would you have a bicycle maker.
So thank you, Robert, for educating us on your tours. And we want to thank our listeners again for tuning in. And you can also tune into a large selection of our other podcasts and much more at his website, which again is holyokecanaltour.org. And you can email him directly for private tours or to inquire about anything else at bobcat4214, capital B, at yahoo.com. And be sure to keep an eye out for his upcoming 2024 season tours and more